everyone to INHAF's 71st webinar. Before handing over to today's anchors and speakers, I'll take a few minutes to explain the reasoning behind the Studio INHAF webinar series. Beginning since June 2020, INHAF began a webinar series known as Rethinking Cities. It was a natural extension of INHAF's earlier work and effort in spearheading an initiative known as Situary or Citizens Urban Initiative. The initiative is based on the challenges foreseen in India's growth story. Worldwide, by the year 2050, we are expecting 2/3 of the world's people to live in urban areas. But the nature of urbanization is complex, with data indicating vast differences even within the country. By 2050, India's urban population is expected to be 877 million, which is an important milestone because it's the first time when more people will live in our cities and towns than our villages. Urbanization by itself is not a problem, but managing it adequately is. While the pandemic brought sharply into focus the challenges our cities and its people face, we did not need COVID to realize that India's urban systems are unable to keep up. With the accelerating pace of growth and with it climate change, technology, economic processes and growth, the question that keeps being asked is how do we handle urbanization so that we reap the benefits of cities as centers of economic growth and aspiration without the exploitative instincts and inequalities that are also present. That is in part one of the many questions this webinar series hopes to open up for discussion. It is a multi-level and multidisciplinary effort and spearheaded by urban professionals, development thinkers, and practitioners to work on a blueprint that outlines the country's response to the urban challenge. It hopes to achieve three things: reassess India's urban challenge, rethink the Indian city, and reformulate the response in the context of national development challenges. INHAF's view is that for any approach to be transformative, it must be located within a collective multidisciplinary effort. And with momentum building around the webinar series, it has been able to, in part, feed into these efforts to bring together the supporting constituency and take wider ownership in meeting the urban transformation challenge as part of Situary. Till date, the webinar has engaged over 100 knowledge partners, both national and international, and over 350 urban experts, professionals, civil society organizations, and community groups to share their perspectives on multiple themes. Today's webinar adds one more dimension. It is the first in a two-part series on mainstreaming women construction workers in higher skilled productive roles. I'd like to now hand over to the anchors for today, Nidhi Batra, founder of Sehreeti Developmental Practices, and Kirtee, Shah, founder and president of INHAF Habitat Forum India.
Thank you, Kia. Thanks so much. From INHAF and Sehreeti, I would really like to welcome all the panelists and the participants. Sehreeti Development Practices is something that I initiated back in 2016. And it's a practice working in sustainable development, skilling, and livelihoods. The idea is how we can co-create cities and how different professions come together and work towards sustainable development. Within that, with Kirtee, Shah, and INHAF, Sehreeti has been in discussion about, what can we really do for construction workers and how to improve the conditions of work and living for construction workers, and specifically women construction workers. And that's where this webinar and discussions with all you panelists and the attendees has been. I'd like to just share my screen and just give a little introduction to what this webinar and our project is really about. And it will kind of try set in the context for today's discussion. So just a second and I'll share my screen. Hope this is visible. So like Kia mentioned, today we are really talking about how can we mainstream women in higher productive job roles, right? So we do know that you see women construction workers. So 35% of construction workers in India are actually women. And in India, the construction industry is actually employing 51 million workers. It is one of the industries which is booming really, and it will employ even more people. Considering that 35% of them are actually women. Now, if you see that women only occupy 5% of the skilled job roles in the construction industry. So while more than 35% of the construction industry are women workers. Most of the work that they're doing is the drudgery work, right? So you see them actually carrying load day in and day out every day. And it is somehow assumed that, if you speak to contractors or you speak to masons on the site, and, so we did kind of inquire with a lot of people. And the first reaction is that, they can't carry enough weight, and that's why they can't do enough, higher productive job roles, which is a complete misnomer, So in every time that they're carrying weight, each that bucket or what she's carrying, about nine of those bricks, is almost 30 kgs. And they're walking about 13 kilometers every day, carrying that load up, in the building. So, and in respect to skills, we all know that they can learn the equivalent skill and perform better, if not the same, on a construction site. So this question that we really have is that, considering that, how is it that women tend to remain only as probably helper mason? And, so we do know from our skilling ecosystem, we have something like national skill qualification frameworks, and we have this hierarchy or a ladder that we say in terms of skilled jobs. But women construction workers tend to either remain in the unskilled job roles or semi-skilled job roles. Having said that, we do know that the construction industry itself has a challenge in skilling. Most of the people are learning on the job. So 80% of the workers which are there in the construction industry have learned on the job. It's not that many take up the skill training programs, but we do see a progression for male construction workers. From a helper mason, they become a mason. They tend to take up scaffolding job roles. They might take up more responsibility. There is a gradation. There are very few pilots that we know of, some organizations which have trained women construction workers either to become, contractors, almost like the model of Mahila Housing Trust or Seva, where the entire team is of women workers, and then they'll implement certain projects either of the government or smaller housing projects, but it's not mainstreamed. We've also seen some examples where industry has come forth and trained, let's say, a cadre of women workers for painting or for a little specialized role. But is it that, every site, every construction site that we're going, do we see women mainstreamed into productive higher job roles? So that is really the discussion today that we want to have with all our panelists. And we are really calling this webinar, the present one today, as a setting the agenda. And that's why all of you are representing different hats, and we want to learn from different perspectives that you all bring in. So just a quick introduction for the panel that we have today for our attendees and everyone. We have Ramendra Kumarji, who is the Secretary General of Delhi Shramik Sangathan. And we want to hear from him on aspects of the worker rights, on the aspects of trade unions, on the perspectives of women construction workers. We have Dr. Gayatri Vasudevan, who's the Executive Chairperson, co-founder of LabourNet. LabourNet is an organization which has been working in skilling, in entrepreneurship, and Gayatri brings in a lot of innovativeness, and we would love to hear from her. We had Mr. Jaiprakash Shroff, who, of course, along with multiple hats, also represent Kushal-CREDAI Pune chapter and has been part of multiple sector skill council. And from him, we would like to understand what is it that industry could do? What is it that skilling programs can do? What is it that sector skill councils can play a role? We have Ms. Bharti Birla, who's the Chief Technical Advisor at ILO for South Asia and Co for India. And from her, we will understand the aspects of informality. What can policy bring in? What is the international context in something like this? And last but not the least, we have a participant who actually competed in what we know as India Skills in the Public Sector, Rinki. And it's so encouraging to see a youth participating in a job role which is considered not a very women-friendly role. And I think Rinki must be one of the first few who would have participated in plumbing sector. And to actually get a gold at the regional skills is something very, very inspiring for all of us. Having said that, I think we'll begin the webinar now. And I will ask my co-anchor Kirtee to just give a little overview of this initiative of what Sehreeti and INHAF has come together. And I'll thank the panelists once again for joining us today.
Let me thank all panelists. Let me thank all participants, and let me thank all who helped put this webinar together, because we've been working on this for a long time. For INHAF, this is 71st webinar, and I was looking at my papers, and the first reference to a webinar on construction workers was as early as 48th webinar. So you would realize, I think, for how long we have been kind of thinking about this. And I'm delighted that it's happened today, and I'm delighted that we have such a distinguished panel to hear from, learn from. Now, I'm a practicing architect, and for 50 years, hundreds of big and small projects that I've done. Also 50 years of development work in human settlement field and large scale projects. In fact, just last week we had a webinar on 50,000 houses project in which we were involved in Sri Lanka for the war victims, 10,000 houses in Gujarat after the earthquake, 60,000 houses in Latur after the earthquake there. Despite all this 50 years of exposure, I've rarely seen, and I do mean this, I've rarely seen a woman carpenter, a woman mason, a woman plumber, a woman site supervisor, a woman contractor, a woman real estate developer, and a woman land broker. None of this, never. I've never seen them, honestly. And this question has been being someone very concerned and involved in development field, concerned about women and their status. Said, why is this so? And believe me, I've asked all kind of people this question. But I also want to tell you that I've never got any satisfactory answer ever. Not even once, not from one source. Now that's a big thing to say. That if you're asking this question for us, a simple question: why are there no women construction workers? Now, very fortunately for me, there was an opportunity to examine this particular matter in some depth. I was chairing a committee set up by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and HUDCO and other organizations. And that committee was looking at strengthening building centers in the country. And I thought that was a terrific opportunity. And therefore, we found 2 or 3 organizations working with women, working with construction workers, and I think very deeply concerned with women and their status. And we asked them to examine this issue very in as much depth as possible. But believe me, that they did lots of work, they did fair amount of training, but not really any good answer came through in terms of why women are not there in the skilled construction jobs. And now the issue probably is this, that women are absent on many jobs and many employment, many livelihood streams. We don't have women taxi drivers. We don't have women auto drivers. We don't have women in security jobs. There are a large number of areas. But the fact remains that in construction, that is not the case, as Nidhi pointed out. 35% of the total construction force, I think labor force of 50 million, are women. So they are there, and they are now, and they are in very big number. They are in unskilled, they earn less, they work very hard, they do tough manual labor, they get exploited. they're not respected heavily. As a matter of fact, I've never seen a Kadiya Naka for women, or I've never seen a woman construction workers at Kadiya Naka. They don't grow in the job, and they start as unskilled labor, and they remain unskilled labor for all time to come. And this is despite the fact that they have skills in their fingers. They pick up skills very fast. They're very responsible. They really perform very well as skilled person. So it's even more difficult to really understand and answer in terms of why this is not happening. Now, what are the implications if they get into skilled jobs? What will happen? Their income probably will double or triple. If you're earning 350 rupees as construction labor, unskilled labor, as mason, you probably earn 800 rupees or probably 900 rupees as carpenter. Your social status will go up. You would grow in your job. You would go step up, step 2, step 3. And there'll be upward social mobility in your life, in your family, in your jobs. And of course, exploitation and harassment will be so much less. And therefore, we want to understand this phenomenon as deeply and as accurately as possible. We do not want to write reports. We do not want to put together a book or write a film. We want to work to change this paradigm, to facilitate entry of this women. And we want to do this with all stakeholders, with the construction industry, with government, with big industry association, with women's rights group, with trade unions, with academics, all kinds of people. And I think we want to join hands. And therefore, one of the reasons I told Nidhi ji that I wanted to be, I think, this is the 71st webinar. I hardly participate as anchor in our webinars, but this I was very keen because I wanted this message to get across. That if you're doing this 3 or 4 webinars, and if you're doing this project for the next year or so, we want something to happen. And we want to ask deep questions why it's not happening, and then try and answer. Want to kind of put together hypothesis, want to put together strategies, want to discuss. And therefore, I think this particular webinar is not one more discussion group. This webinar is to find ways, find strategies, find answers in terms of how do we move so that we could make some impact. It's going on for years and years and years. It's not changing. Time has come for us to see that it changes. And with this particular initiative, as we say it, as INHAF sees this, as Sehreeti sees this, is something to try out. And whenever I get chance in this discussion, I'm going to kind of come back and put together some specific ideas in terms of how do we take them further in order to test with this wonderful panel that we have. So that's a sort of background that I wanted to kind of emphasize for this particular webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kirtee. I think that was very, very helpful to set the context for today's discussion. Something that I forgot to say in the beginning, anybody who has any questions, please be free to use Q&A. We will have a discussion at the end, but if possible, we'll try to take up questions for specific speakers at that time itself. So let's begin today's discussion, and I would like to begin with Ramendra ji, with you. So just a quick introduction of Ravindra Kumarji. He has been working with urban poor and slum dwellers of Delhi since 1991. He holds administrative positions in various worker collectives, such as Trade Union Coordination Center and Delhi Nirman Mazdoor Sangathan, in addition to serving on statutory boards such as Delhi BOCW Board and Delhi Minimum Wage Advisory Board. Over the last 30 years, he has created significant impact in terms of mobilizing, unionizing, and advocating for rights and entitlements of informal economy workers. So Ravindra ji, आज सुबह ही हम लोग बात कर रहे थे. So आपके perspective से, I mean, I think what we want to learn from you is really what is it that the workers want? How is it that the trade unions are able to bring an issue such as this that we are discussing, especially for the rights of women workers? And in addition to that, their upward mobility in higher productive job roles. How is it that something like this is a problem like this is situated within the trade unions, and how are you able to advocate for something like that? And considering your position and your space for negotiation, how do you go about that? Ramendra ji, are you there? And आप mute पे हैं शायद. रमेंद्र जी, आप शायद म्यूट पे हैं, आपको.
Yes.
हाँ. हाँ जी.
Thank you, Nidhi. Yeah. Thank you, Nidhi, and good evening to everyone. Yeah, I think, the topic which we have kept for this webinar is really, good. And I think we all need, as Kirtee sir was telling, that we need to think that, how women can be progressive in this construction sector. See, the trade union, basically, historically, trade union is male-dominated areas. Here, the women workers are not in a leadership. You won't find many leaders in the trade union. But as far as construction sector is concerned, you will find many women workers working in the construction industry. But as you have rightly said, that their position is not in a supervisory role or in a mason or chief mason, whatever. I think most of the women construction workers are in the helper or in the coolie, beldar, whatever we call them. So they are in a helping hand. And in Delhi, as per our experience, we have seen historically, which are the regions from where these women construction workers join the construction industry. So there are two regions. One is Rajasthan and another is Bundelkhand areas of Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. From these regions, these women construction workers come to work in the construction sector. But you will find they are working, either their family are construction worker or they are working with their husbands. They are going to work with their husbands. And the situation of construction women worker is really not, we can say that if you just compare with the skill requirement, most of them are illiterate. More than 90% women are illiterate, and they are belonging to the lower strata of the society, and they come from the caste villages regions. So all this, the bourgeoisie systems or the patriarchal setups, they are governed with those things. So in that situation, when they come to city as a migrant worker, so easily they find work in the construction industry. And as I said when we started work in 90s, then we found many women. They are from these Rajasthan and these Bundelkhand areas. Now, since last 15-20 years, we have seen women from the Bihar, from the Bengal, and from UP also. They are coming to the they are participating in the construction industry. I think Kirtee was telling that the women are sharp. It is very really, he is right. The women are sharp, and I have seen there are many people. In the afternoon I was explaining to you, we have many construction workers. They are working as a mason. They are working as a mason. Some of them are contractor. And contractor, not 1, 2 lakh, 25 lakh, 30 lakhs projects they are doing. And the women painters, they are, taking the in charge of, like Chawla, there is a police camp of CRPF in Delhi. There is a Noida One housing society. These women are taking contact of the painting of the whole premises, the camps or the housing societies. So it means, but the problem is that they are not literate. They have just only functional literacy. They can calculate the square foot area. How much a square foot is, what is the rate, but they know all the brands of the paint, all the companies, everything. In our experience, what we have seen, even 10 years before, we were not very interested in putting them under the skill, because we believe that by doing their job, they will learn the skill. but I think in one of the meeting in Ministry of Labor, I think Mr. Mathur from the National Skill Development Council, he was the CEO, I think, at that time, he gave a presentation. And after his presentation, we have a brief meeting with our central trade union, that is the Trade Union Coordination Center. And we try to understand how this whole skill program will benefit the women. And after that, we started talking to the women and we mobilized. I think we have now around 45,000 construction workers in our union, and around 20 to 25% are women members. So, but after talking to 1,000 women, only we could identify 500 and 600 women who are either 8th pass or 10th pass or 10th fail. I mean, they could only be eligible to participate in the National Construction Skill Development Council program. And we have only now, the hierarchy, the table which you were showing, from helper, they have gone to the assistant mission. Nobody has crossed the assistant mission line. So all 300 women who have undergone under the skill training program, they are in 2 trades, one in the painting and another is the assistant mission. So this is this is the status. But there are many challenges which I would like to put here before all the panelists. The challenges, one is the illiteracy. They do not have that much of qualification to be eligible for the training program, which the government has decided. Second thing is the finance. The 800 rupees is the charge per person for the National Construction Skill Development Council for the course fee. Another is, suppose if there is 80 hours course or 100 hours course, then we divide the course in days, 6 hours or 7 hours per day. Then suppose 10 to 15 days are, these are the job loss, the wage loss for the 10 to 15 days. So, most of the women are not able to afford those losses. And the third one is the training cost. Like we engaged Ambuja Foundation for our most of the training program, and another there is a Gurgaon-based company. It is India Vision. So because, their charges are also high. So for a union, and for a union, it is not possible. The women can take leave from their work for 10 to 15 days. Women can pay 800 rupees. Or otherwise union kept from its membership fee. Otherwise it is very difficult, but the training charges, it is very difficult to pay. So these are the challenges. Apart from these technical challenges, what we believe that the major challenge is the whole patriarchal setup, the mindset of the male person in the society. We can say most of the male, we cannot say all male, but most of the male. And we should start from the house, the husband. कोई हस्बैंड नहीं चाहता है कि मेरी पत्नी अगर मैं राजमिस्त्री हूं तो मेरी पत्नी भी राजमिस्त्री हो जाए. So when we started in 2014-15 talking to the male construction worker that why not don't you motivate or encourage your women partner कि वो भी ये ट्रेनिंग में आ जाएं, तो उनका ये कहना था, उनको ये लगता था कि ये मिस्त्री कैसे बनेगी, इनके लिए बहुत मुश्किल है, ये ईंट उठा ले बहुत है, मसाला दे दे बहुत है, गारा उठा ले बहुत है. लेकिन जब उन्होंने देखा कि ट्रेनिंग हुआ, लोगों ने सक्सेसफुली उसको क्वालिफाई किया, एंड नाउ दे हैव वन सर्टिफिकेट जो बिल्कुल फ्रेम में है और उनके कमरे के दरवाजे पे लगा हुआ है, उनके कमरे में. तो उन्होंने कहा कि मैं तो 25 साल से काम कर रहा हूं, मेरे पास तो कोई सर्टिफिकेट नहीं, बट मेरी पत्नी जो मेरे नीचे काम करती है उसका सर्टिफिकेट मेरे दीवार पे टंगा हुआ है, वो एक क्वालिफाइड असिस्टेंट मिशन है. तो ये एक चलता रहा. लेकिन जो दूसरा हम लोगों ने फेस किया, if you talk to the employer, like जैसे मैं बहुत सारे यहाँ पे जैसे DMRC है, दिल्ली मेट्रो रेल कॉर्पोरेशन है, LNT है, अहलुवालिया है, आप जिनसे भी बड़े कंस्ट्रक्शन में बात करें तो वहाँ पे उनको बहुत दिक्कत होता है फीमेल कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर को एम्प्लॉयमेंट देने में. उनका फेथ नहीं, उनको लगता है कि नहीं ये 10 दिन 15 दिन की ट्रेनिंग में इनको कितना आ जाएगा और ये कितना काम कर पाएंगी. तो वो जो फेथ है, वो बहुत फेथ नहीं है उनके पास. दूसरा, उनको लगता है कि शायद ये बहुत ज्यादा किसी एक जॉब को एक टारगेट के तौर पे ये पूरा नहीं कर पाएंगी. जो जेंट्स होते हैं वो तो काम कर लेते हैं, वो तो शाम 6 बजे के बाद भी काम कर लेते हैं, बट दे आर अनएबल टू वर्क इन नाइट शिफ्ट एंड समथिंग, इस तरह से करके रात में ज्यादा देर काम नहीं कर पाएंगी. और जो मेजर इशू इसके बाद लगा कि जो वेज है, वेज बहुत ही डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी वेज है. पूरी दिल्ली में मैंने पिछले 30 साल में मैंने किसी भी एक एम्प्लॉयर को नहीं देखा कि वो किसी भी वेमेन को मेन के बराबर वेज देते हुए. अगर वो हेल्पर है तो मेल हेल्पर को अगर वो 500 रुपया 400 रुपया देगा तो वेमेन को 300 रुपया देगा, 350 रुपया देगा या 400 रुपया देगा. I mean, we know that we have 1976 Act, Equal Remuneration Act 1976, but still it is totally not applicable, inapplicable to all construction sector. Nobody follows it. Chota employer ho, bada employer ho, 1-2 crore ka employer ho, ya 1000 crore ka employer ho, we have failed to convince. I am member of this Delhi Building and Construction Worker Welfare Board, also member of Delhi Minimum Advisory Board. आप बार बार चिट्ठी भेजो, बातचीत करो, कन्विंस करो, उनको लगता है कि ये मेरा काम नहीं है, आई हैव गिवन दिस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट टू अनदर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, ये उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कि वो वेज देता है या नहीं देता है। इसके अलावा मुझे लग रहा है कि सेफ्टी इज अ मेजर इशू। जो चैलेंज मुझे लग रहा था मैं आपको वो शेयर कर रहा हूँ कि जो कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट है वहाँ पे सेफ्टी भी एक मेजर इशू है। बहुत सारे सेक्सुअल एब्यूज के केसेस आपको रिपोर्ट होते हैं यूनियन में कि भाई वहां पे ऐसा हुआ वैसा हुआ। और जहां तक मैंने देखा है कि वुमेन कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स अगर आप पूछे कि वेयर डू यू प्रेफर टू वर्क, मेगा प्रोजेक्ट में या किसी छोटे प्रोजेक्ट में, दे विल ऑलवेज प्रेफर टू वर्क इन ए स्मॉल प्रोजेक्ट। उनको लगता है ये घर से नजदीक होता है, पैसे मुझे यहाँ पे अच्छे मिल जाते हैं, और कम से कम मेरा हस्बैंड या मेरे बस्ती के या कोई और भी लोग मेरे साथ होते हैं तो आई एम प्रोटेक्टेड हियर। बट दे विल नेवर प्रेफर टू गो टू ए मेगा प्रोजेक्ट, जबकि वहां पे उनको एक लंबा काम मिल सकता है, कंटिन्यूअस काम मिलेगा, पैसा ही मिलेगा। लेकिन चूंकि जितने भी मेगा प्रोजेक्ट है दिल्ली में, अब जैसे डीडीए की जितने हाउसिंग प्रोजेक्ट है, अभी साउथ वेस्ट में हमारे बगल में एक हाउसिंग प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा है, यू विल सरप्राइज टू नो दिल्ली का मिनिमम वेज अभी है 618 रुपीज फॉर अनस्किल्ड वर्कर, एंड दे आर पेइंग 200 रुपीज to unskilled worker and 180 to the women construction worker and 300 for the mission। ये डीडीए का प्रोजेक्ट है। वी विल सरप्राइज टू नो, आप लेबर कमिश्नर को भी कहते हो कि व्हाई डोंट यू विजिट दिस एरिया, और आप क्यों नहीं देख रहे हो कि यहाँ पे इतना सारा डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है, ये इतना लो वेज में लोग काम कर रहे हैं। लेकिन वो कहते हैं यार हमारे पास इंस्पेक्टर नहीं है, 11 जिले हैं, 9 इंस्पेक्टर है, तो आपने कहा है ठीक है देख लेंगे, लेकिन कभी एक्शन होते हुए हमने नहीं देखा इतने सालों में। तो मुझे लग रहा है कि ये सब चैलेंजेस है। और दूसरा जो मुझे लग रहा था कि क्या, जैसे आपसे बात भी हो रही थी और मैं देख भी रहा हूँ कि भाई प्रूविंग फॉर द सॉल्यूशन, कि भाई सॉल्यूशन क्या है। मुझे लग रहा है कि जो ट्रेनिंग, जो स्किल वाला पार्ट है, इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि औरतों को स्किल, मतलब वुमेन कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर को आप स्किल दें, सभी कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर को स्किल दें। वुमेन को देते हैं तो एक अच्छा होगा, जैसा कि जो सोशल इम्पैक्ट होगा, जैसा कीर्ति सर ने कहा था कि भाई घर में अगर स्किल 2 स्किल पर्सन हो जाएंगे, ज्यादा वेज आएगा, एक लाइफ स्टाइल में चेंज हो जाता है। और जब हम लोगों ने इसको 5-7 साल पहले जो हमने देखा था, बिल्डर एसोसिएशन के साथ जो हमारी बातचीत हुई, जो हमें ये समझ में आ रहा था कि सभी बिल्डर चाहते हैं कि उनका प्रोडक्ट जो है क्वालिटी प्रोडक्ट हो, और टू जस्ट प्रोड्यूस ए क्वालिटी प्रोडक्ट दे नीड अ क्वालिटी वर्क, एंड फॉर दैट दे नीड ए स्किल्ड वर्कर। तो स्किल इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है कि बिल्डर थोड़ा सपोर्ट करे, जैसे आपने कहा कि आपने भी कुछ दिन वहां पे काम किया था नेशनल कंस्ट्रक्शन स्किल डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल में, तो मुझे लग रहा है कि हम लोग चाहते हैं कि कम से कम उनके जितने सिलेबस हो एक बार रीथिंक हो उसमें लिटरेसी के साथ हम स्किल को जोड़ें। सब फंक्शनल लिटरेसी का भी पार्ट हो, जहाँ पे जो इलिटरेट वुमेन है उनको कम से कम वो चीज भी हम वहाँ पे दे सके, रीड राइट अर्थमेटिक जो भी, कम से कम वो चीज उनको आ जाए, उसके साथ स्किल ट्रेनिंग हो। दूसरा, एम्प्लॉयर से एक रिक्वेस्ट है कि एम्प्लॉयर इनको अपने यहाँ ऑन द जॉब ट्रेनिंग दे, है ना। लगातार इनको कोई एनकरेज नहीं करता कि भाई यू आर ए कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर, यू कैन वर्क, यू कैन परफॉर्म दिस टास्क, आप वो लिंटर कर सकते हैं, चाहे आप सरिया डाल सकते हैं। उनको लगता है कि शायद ये तो इनके बस की बात नहीं है। लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है कि अगर एम्प्लॉयर वहां पे ऑन द जॉब ट्रेनिंग दे, 6 मंथ का 1 ईयर का ट्रेनिंग दे, लो वेज में ही दे, इनको मिशन का वेज ना दे, एज ए हेल्पर का ही वेज दे, लेकिन ऑन द जॉब ट्रेनिंग के बाद अगर ये स्किल एक्वायर करती हैं एंड दे गेट दैट कैपेबिलिटी टू परफॉर्म एज ए मिशन, तो उनको कम से कम मिशन में प्रमोट भी करें और उनको वहां पे वो वेज भी दें। तो मुझे लग रहा है अगर ये वहां से हो, और उसके अलावा अब जैसे बीओसी एक्ट है, इतना सुंदर एक्ट है, देयर आर 198 रूल्स इन द सेफ्टी ऑफ द वर्क प्लेस, वो मुझे लग रहा है कि मोस्ट ऑफ द एम्प्लॉयर जो है उसको बिल्कुल फॉलो नहीं करते हैं। आप देखोगे, मैंने आपको बताया भी था, एलएनटी का एक साइट था, अब वहां पे देयर वर 1200 वर्कर्स and only 28 washrooms। मतलब हाउ कैन यू इमेजिन कि 1200 वर्कर्स उस 28 वाशरूम को यूज कर लेगा और वो बिल्कुल सैनिटेशन भी मेंटेन होगा। तो मुझे लग रहा है कि ये जो सारी चीजें हैं, इसको भी अगर एम्प्लॉयर अपने नजर अपने लेवल पे देखे कि भाई हम इनके जो भी बेसिक वाटर है, टॉयलेट है, रेस्ट रूम है, इस तरह की फैसिलिटीज भी हम दें वहाँ पे, जितने भी इस तरह के अलग अलग जो एब्यूजेज है अगर उसको हम ना करें और वेज वाले एस्पेक्ट पे अगर हम ध्यान दें, तो मुझे लग रहा है कि हम इनको प्रमोट कर सकते हैं। और जो सबसे बड़ा है, जो रूट कॉज है, मुझे लगता है जो हमारे पूरे सोशल सिस्टम में ही वो इनबिल्ट है, वो है कि भाई आमतौर पे सबको लगता है कि भाई महिलाएं तो पुरुषों के बराबर नहीं है, लेकिन बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स हैं जहां महिलाएं पुरुषों से भी आगे निकली हैं और दे आर वेरी शार्प इनफ कि वो अपने आप को प्रूव भी कर सकती हैं। और मुझे लग रहा है कि एक उस तरह से माहौल बनाने की भी जरूरत है। और जैसा कीर्ति सर ने कहा था, कीर्ति सर हम लोग मुझे लग रहा है कि हम बिरला ये भारती जानती है, इतने सालों में हम 12 सेंट्रल ट्रेड यूनियन है, और मुझे लग रहा है अभी 1-2 सालों में कुछ एक दो सेंट्रल ट्रेड यूनियन अपने यहाँ वेमेन लीडरशिप को किसी बड़े सीनियर प्रेसिडेंट या जनरल सेक्रेटरी के ऑफिस में रोल में लाए हैं। अदरवाइज आप देखेंगे कि मेनली पूरे यूनियंस जो है ना, दे आर डोमिनेटेड बाय द मेल मेंबर्स, और बहुत मुश्किल होता है किसी वेमेन को उस लैडर पे वहां ऊंचाई तक जाना। बट इट इज नॉट इम्पॉसिबल। लेकिन एक हम लोगों ने कोशिश किया है और हम लोगों ने इसको प्रैक्टिस करना चाहा। पिछले 10 साल से हम भी प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि पहले मतलब हम लोग काम तो कर रहे थे, बट वी आर नॉट ओरिएंटेड ऑन द जेंडर एंड सेक्सुअलिटी राइट्स। बट जैसे जैसे हम लोगों ने इस काम को, इस पूरे एस्पेक्ट को सीखा है, तभी हमने कोशिश किया है कि हमारे जितने भी यूनियंस के जहां जहां भी हमारे यूनिट्स हैं, सभी जगह जो भी मेंबर्स हमारे होते हैं, देयर आर इक्वल नंबर ऑफ मेल एंड फीमेल जो उस एरिया को गवर्न करते हैं। और इवन कि हमारे टोटल एग्जीक्यूटिव बॉडी में भी आउट ऑफ 9 7 मेंबर्स आर 7 वुमेन मेंबर्स आर देयर। तो ये हमने कोशिश किया है कि अपने लेवल पे, और एक हमारा नेशनल फेडरेशन भी है, नेशनल प्रोग्रेसिव कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर फेडरेशन, जो TUCC से एफिलिएटेड है। वी आर हैविंग यूनिट्स इन 19 स्टेट्स। कोशिश हम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन मतलब विद इन आवर सेंट्रल ट्रेड यूनियन वी आल्सो फाइंड वेरी, आई मीन देयर इज अ स्ट्रगल टू एस्टैब्लिश कि औरतों को भी मर्दों के बराबर आप जगह दो, बराबर का स्थान दो, लीडरशिप में जगह दो। ये एक मतलब एक पूरा सोशल इश्यूज है, और मुझे लग रहा है कि असंभव नहीं है, लेकिन लगातार इस पे काम करने की जरूरत है, तब शायद हम जाके इसको पा सकते हैं। अभी के लिए इतना ही। अगर कुछ और सवाल होगा तो फिर उसमें मैं ऐड कर सकता हूँ।
थैंक यू रविंद्र जी। आपने इतना बढ़िया एक पर्सपेक्टिव दिया कि हमें पूरे इकोसिस्टम को नर्चर करना, एक सरिया पकड़ के नहीं होगा। तो जैसे आप यूनियन का एग्जांपल दे रहे हैं, या इंडस्ट्री का एग्जांपल दे रहे हैं, या एग्जांपल दे रहे हैं कि हमारे पास एक्ट तो है पर उसकी कोई इंस्पेक्शन नहीं हो रही, it's not getting implemented. So I think it's really about, या हमारे पास NSDC की qualifications तो हैं, पर उसमें भी मतलब who is going to be 8th pass to take a construction job role. So we don't really think कि उसमें functional literacy का module होना चाहिए, उसमें ही barriers पहले ही आ जाते हैं. So I mean it's really we really need to look at it at an ecosystem kind of an approach, and everybody needs to do their smaller bits. And I think we really loved your perspective on this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. बढ़ते हैं आगे. So I'll invite my next panelist, Dr. Gayatri Vasudevan. Gayatri co-founded LabourNet in 2006 with the vision to enable livelihoods and enhance quality of life through education, employability, and entrepreneurship. Since then, LabourNet has impacted about 1 million lives, empowering youth, men, and women to earn a decent living or become profitable micro-entrepreneurs. She was cited as one of the top 50 women in business by Business Today in 2017, and Entrepreneur of the Year in Social Business by Forbes India in 2018. Thank you so much, Gayatri, for joining. And we have had great conversation on this topic. And I think from you, I really want to understand, one, as of course, a training organization, but a perspective that you work with so many nurturing entrepreneurs, right? And innovating solutions around this. And you yourself have launched a program for construction workers and housing and improving the working conditions for construction workers. What is it that you can think that how this ecosystem that Ravindra ji introduced to us, how can this be stitched together in a way that private sector also participates? It's not just something which is written in a policy, or we put in a reservation in a policy that, okay, yeah, you're supposed to employ 35% women, or you do this, but it actually makes sense and it becomes implemented on ground. So what are your thoughts and ideas on that, Gayatri?
Thank you so much for inviting me in, Nidhi. And, I'm going to take away from my previous two panelists on some of the points that they raised and some of the experiences which I have. First, I'll take from, the honorable co-chair. What he said is, I haven't seen women in leadership positions. And if he is the person who says it, I think we all need to really say, a person who believes in it hasn't seen it, is really what it talks of where we are. And I'd like to sort of bring another point there. I have actually seen women disappearing from construction work, even at menial levels. When I started this journey in 2007 to now, I don't have statistics, but I would bet my penny that we would have lost 50% of women who are on construction sites, especially large sites like the ones that Ramendra was referring to. I don't see them anymore. And I go to construction sites very frequently. They used to come as pairs, as husband-wife pair, as families. Today, most of the requirements are coming as single male worker required. So women have been eliminated from construction sites, and slowly they're getting completely eliminated. Unskilled, semi-skilled, skilled and semi-skilled, they weren't there. Unskilled, they're getting eliminated, which I think we need to look at why they are not. And I think what was revealing was Raminderji's statement, right? They would prefer to work in smaller sites now because of security reasons. And also possibly because the wage is given as a family income, not as an individual. So I'd like to sort of take 2 points here and really, spend some time on it. One, as you said, when COVID hit, one of the things we attempted to do is with one of the contractors, and I really would like to name the contractor, JMC, we went and said, you know what, everybody is doing food kit. Can we redo the construction workers' living quarters? Can we ensure enough toilets are there as per the norms that are there by law? We're not doing outside the law. By law, number of toilets, sanitation, water, a kitchen, doctor facilities, living quarters, how many people per room, ventilation. And what was really shocking is this is a construction that we're doing, right? Real estate construction for commercial, for residential, where each one of us probably lives. So that means our everyday existence is based on the fact that we've had an exploitative practice for the workers who built it for us. And, probably, I'm not sure if anybody who's listening to this or in this is possibly not a construction worker, with the exception, possibly, and a person we hold in high esteem is Rinki. But other than that, all of us have exploited. I think the key is, as consumers, have we asked this question when construction is happening? Because I think, you've seen in apparel, there are brands which have come together and it is done. But construction is, how do you bring it together? And to me, it is consumer education, which is going to be the changing factor. What is the living quarters of people who have constructed? If we ask ourselves that question, possibly we would change it. One of the things we attempted to do, and I was quite pleasantly surprised, is the cost is not prohibitive. But one thing I think is we need to take it off saying the construction company themselves or the contractor company. So there is the builder, there is the construction contractor, the main contractor, and of course there are multiple layers of subcontracting. But I'm saying the main contractor normally builds accommodation for about 50% of the workers who are on sites. I'm talking of large sites now. I'm not talking of smaller sites. So large sites have this, one can safely say they do. And sometimes it may be more than 50%. So it is there that we can, in my opinion, very quickly ensure that we create a buzz around it and create models. We have done one. I'm sure there are others who have done 1 or 2 around it, But can we say, listen, can we put a target and say that all large commercial construction, all which is, large commercial complexes, real estate complexes, say by 2025, they need to have a contractor who builds it out for them and adheres to the standard. And the reason why I say contractor is, when I do it myself, compliance is always an issue. So is there a way I can change that whole equation there? Now, this does not mean that women will get employed. But what I'm saying is we can at least create an ambience where they can bring in the women who have got eliminated. So we need to address this from two perspectives. Today, only male migration is happening for large sites. Can we increase women migration? In that case, what could be the facilitative ecosystem? First to my mind is housing. Second is that we need to bring them in groups, not as individuals. Feminization of labor in manufacturing, especially in the South. If you look at leather, rubber, today Ola is being spoken about, Zomato really wants to do it for delivery. Everywhere is about scale. Women have security with women. Women will not have security if they are one in a million. Maybe we'll have one or two rock stars, but we need everyday worker to be the woman, not the rock star alone. So we don't want to put a medallion, and I don't mean to be blasphemous, but we don't need a Devi there. We need we need everyday women there. So I think, how do we create that? That means if we focus on accommodation, my key is that then we can say 30% accommodation is for women, and therefore 30% have to be women. You have to occupy that accommodation, and therefore we bring women into the construction sites. So let's focus on bringing numbers into construction sites. Point number one. Second, I think I'd like to pick up the issue of training. And here, I don't know whether I feel culpable, for all them, because that's really how our organization we really believed that certification is the key. But increasingly, I'm questioning that. I'm increasingly questioning it because I think the continuance between certification, training, and wage is very, very difficult and is tenuous. So in that case, we need to really rethink the training paradigm. And construction is one sector where I have seen tremendous technology advancement. If I look at just my journey, and I feel a bit hesitant to put it out with the panel that I'm sitting on, but I'm going to take a stab at it. Civil construction has completely changed. We do not have any more brick masonry in the traditional sense. They're all pretty much block, concrete poured, finished. Bar bending has gone. It's only gun-based binding which happens. So there's a huge change which has happened on construction sites. We often don't talk of the technological change which has happened there. In that case, continuous learning is important for everybody. And if we bring women in large numbers, because we have intervened at housing and have catered to security, our chances of ensuring continuous learning and therefore improvement in women's skills is higher. If we try to do it as a one-off training center, is very, very, very difficult. Then we are chasing numbers, and trust me, I've done that. I've been there, where I've given the numbers, I've given the documentation in order to collect the quote unquote the training fee. But the training fee is not the point, is the outcome achieved, right? So that's where I'm coming from, is we need to really rethink the paradigm of training. Training, as Mr. Ramendra Singh said, yeah, there are qualifications. You say this is the minimum which is required, because there is a larger paradigm to saying India is becoming literate, India is becoming educated. And therefore, so we don't look at our GERs carefully enough. Who drops out? Where do they drop out? Why do they drop out? So if we look at our GER between grade 5, grade 8, grade 10, grade 12, I think we'll have a lot of answers saying that there are only certain people who will go into certain sectors, and they possibly haven't been there. So rather than bring it in from, obviously functional literacy and numeracy and digital literacy is absolutely mandatory now. I think the key is to really, look at what are we giving as value. So for example, if it is in civil, what is the value? If it is in finishing, what is the value? So should I focus, if I'm saying, for me now, strangely, from training, I want to actually build living housing quarters for workers. And Nidhi, unfortunately, has been the recipient of those tremendous number of WhatsApps that I give her with videos and things like that. But the point is that unless we change the paradigm, we change the entire way in which we're going to bring women into workforce and skilled workforce later, it's not going to change. So if we're able to bring that, then the question really is, they are going to go back, right? Construction is not a permanent employment. You are going to have contracting system, which is not going to change. No problem there. But in the downtime, I can actually look to see what further technological training which can be provided. And today, the availability of knowledge is not a question. Content is free today. For all of us, content is free, and I'm sure men or women in construction can access content if we make it accessible to them. So it's a question of making it accessible. And then, of course, it's dexterity, it's experience. So, I mean, I'm again going to go back to Raminderji's point. He said that the employers and builders and contractors are saying, why do I pay them? I don't believe they can do as good work. Work is about experience. Work is about the artifacts that you're able to show, that you're able to deliver. So we need to create those artifacts for them. Think of them as going to a design school. That is only, whether it's an NID or a Shrishti, you have a portfolio you have to create. We've got to create these portfolios for women. And that's the only way that they're going to break the barrier. So I'll stop here just to say, make it a living working place for women. Invite them in. Then change the paradigm of learning. Now, NSQF probably has to look at micro-credentialing. So how do I move somebody in a micro-credentialing upwards? It's not duration. In that case, it all changes. The paradigm changes. Today, because government pays, the entire thing is about accountability. And accountability is training hours. Accountability doesn't end up being the outcome. So outcome is forgotten in it, and output is monitored more. And people like us are actually paid for output and not for outcome. And how do you do outcome, right? Unless you do this ecosystem change that was so eloquently put forward earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gayathri. I mean, I think what you brought about, adding on to what Ravindra was saying, is really amazing. And I love the fact that you said consumer education. And today morning itself, I was hearing a podcast on ESG, and Germany has come up with something like a energy pass, to understand that when a consumer is taking some property, what is the environment, social risk that he has. Now, we know that all of the industry or most of the companies now have to do their ESG auditing. Even L&T has to do it, right? So how come, is there a way that we have something within that audit itself that kind of encourages women workers to be brought in? Because even though, like we're saying, that who's going to make that facility? Who's going to give housing for the women construction worker? So till the time, one, the consumer is aware or ask for something like that in the property that I'm buying or procuring, has the best practices been followed? Is the supply chain done in the most positive and most environment friendly, most social friendly way? And then can the industry person can also be liable for doing it? And NSQ, having said that, I mean, I think a lot of change comes from industry before, and then the government follows, and then the processes follows. So I think it's an interesting time to take this issue up now.
Maybe just 1 second.
Yes.
ESG framework, you're absolutely right. I actually missed that, and that's a very interesting one, right? There are investors who actually say they have to be ESG compliant. Yeah. But I haven't seen an ESG framework which is easy to adhere to. Yeah. Other than a checkbox. How do you really, popularize ESG and actually create that framework. So I think groups
that's
like
what
this
I'm working on right
good.
now. So that's something that's been burning in my mind. But yes, I think that's something that is a push button right now, which we can really catch on. Great. Moving forward, I'm really excited to introduce Rinky Mahato, and we'll also have a little video from her. And I had a lovely conversation with Rinky. Rinky is actually a civil engineer who graduated from C.V. Raman Global University, Bhubaneswar. And she participated in what we know as India Skills. Some of you might not know this. There is a competition called World Skills, and India and many other countries participates in skill trades. And we do have a regional competition, and Rinky won the gold at the regionals level. And she also got a medallion at the finals in plumbing and heating sector, which is a very non-women friendly sector. And I think that's what we want to really hear from Rinky, what inspired her to take this sector training in this and actually compete in this and wanting to represent India in the world scale. So I'll request Ankisha to share the video. Thanks, Ankisha. Ankisha, could you put the volume also?
Yeah. My name is Rinky Mahato and I am participating in plumbing and heating scheme. I am representing Odisha. I love plumbing. That's why I am here to represent, and I want to represent my country. I am the first. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, the video went off. Yeah. Volume again.
Present, and I want to represent my country. I am the first woman who selected in India skills in plumbing itself. I want to break that stereotype like girls can't do that. बहुत ज़्यादा strength वाला काम है. I do agree कि strength वाला काम है, but we can. जब हम सब चीजें कर सकते हैं, तो why not plumbing?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Rinky.
Yeah. Hi, ma'am.
It is like I was having a conversation with you. I think it's been, and everybody I'm sure is so inspired by just looking at your example. So thoda apne bare mein batao, and what made you interested in plumbing after doing civil engineering and take this trade up for the competition?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, good evening to all. And thank you so much. Like, it's an honor for me to speak in front of everyone, like so much of delegates. And I'm a civil engineer graduate. I take plumbing like in the registration of India skills. All my friends are taking part in different skills, but no one is willing to go in plumbing, and they are just thinking कि plumbing is not like वो इतना valuable work नहीं है, and then उसको इतनी वो respect नहीं मिलती है. So why we have to put so much of effort and hard work to do plumbing as well. So on that time I don't know कि girls नहीं लेती हैं. I just got some interest on that. I searched in YouTube. I saw some videos of plumbing and India skills also. So I got some interest, and then I registered for plumbing and heating. And I was like trained in my college only. It was not including in my course plumbing, but I just searched from Google or YouTube, and I learned something about plumbing, and I got interested in this, and I learned more and more and more. Then I cleared district level, state level, and then for regionals I went to Chandigarh. On that time, just like my fellow competitors, all are men, and they are kind of real life plumbers also. And I was the one who is not belonging to any plumbing kind of fields, and so I was a bit nervous. And then boot camps are happened, so it helps me a lot to prepare myself for the competition. And during the competition I was doing very pretty good, and some of my competitors are pretty confident that she is engineer and she is a woman, So she can't outstand men in this skill at least. So they are pretty sure that I will not going to do good in this, and they are just coming and saying me, why you are here, why you are doing such a kind of thing, like तुम pipes wipes खोल के क्या ही करोगे, they are literally saying me. And I was like, I have interest in that, so why I not. So on the result day, I got gold, and it's like, okay, I was so happy ki chalo. And I want to encourage other girls ki if I can do, why not other girls? Like strength, yeah, strength is needed in this work, but willpower is something. If we want to do something, we can. No one going to stop. And the support, like family support is very important. Mental support, like my parents are continuously supporting me. They know ki there is no girls in the training also, but they just gave me all the like uh, free times, and like if you want to do, if you want to go anywhere like Delhi, Chandigarh for the competition, then you are free to go. Like we don't put any barrier on you. Like my native is Bihar, and the thinking of Bihar, we all know कि girls को इतना पढ़ाना and then बाहर भेजना is not good. But my parents are so supportive in every situation. They are like, okay, you can, if you can, then why not. So it's the journey of on the nationals also. I perform well, but I settle for medallion of excellence. But okay, it's okay. On that time I feel just bad for myself. I think that ki if I getting any medal like gold or silver, I'll represent the girls society itself ki nationals, maybe I'm doing a very good job, then we can represent the country as well in this. Just a second, ma'am, there is some power cutting.
No problem, no problem.
Yes, ma'am. So on that time, everyone is supporting, like NSDC also, IPSC also, and my college also supporting me for that. But like women empowerment is something we should not celebrating the participation only. We
Yeah.
should encourage and like validating their skill set. It's truly terms refers empowerment, but in some extent I can't see such like justification for the skill set. That's the problem ki construction site and then this site, there is stereotype mindset ki girls can't do if they are capable enough to do, but they didn't get any opportunity to prove themselves कि she can. If we, अगर हमें उतना chance दिया जाएगा तो we can prove, like I am better than this their 8 boys ना, so I got a goal. If opportunities girls को मिलेंगे वैसे mental support मिलेगा, family की support मिलेगी, then बहुत अच्छा हो सकता है मैम. That's my journey for that. India skills, nationals tak. I wanna go further, like for international also, but there is
No,
some
I'm sure
issues.
you
So
will. No, I think
yeah.
I'm sure you will, and you want to be a trainer yourself, and I think it'll
Yes,
be.
ma'am. I want to encourage girls to taking up these skills and want to become a trainer to train other girls. Like just a security kind of things are there. Ki, there are all male trainers, so they want to take a training, but they are scared. Ki all there are all males, there are no girls to train them. So that's why I want to become a trainer and I want to train them.
Yes.
Like in our home also, if there is some plumbing issues like water issues, if घर पे तो सब females ही रहती हैं, if you want some कि fix करना है, so there is male plumbers only. तो there is something, कभी कभी वो mind में आता है कि घर में सब female है and then हमें male plumber को बुलाने में issue है. इवन उनका माइंड, उनके माइंड में कुछ ना हो, बट ऐसा थिंकिंग होता है इफ वहां पे फीमेल प्लम्बर रही तो वो उनके लिए भी हेल्पफुल होगा. और बीइंग ए गर्ल वी ओनली नो द बेस्ट यूजेस ऑफ वाटर. and we can save water also. If one girl is skilled in every house, we can save more and more water, ma'am. Like it's a very good thing if we can take. It's a tough job, but we can for sure.
I think the last point which you said, Rinki, and I'm sure Gayatri is also smiling right now, is so valuable. You know, I mean, we've been discussing that why is it that we have male plumbers when actually the household is, you know, what you said is run by women. We would
Yes,
love to have women plumbers come over to our house and take care. I mean, most of the men are usually out for work. So how come
yes,
we've conceptualized that this is a male job? Why do we allow male workers to come into our house? We might not be comfortable with that. But this
yes,
breaking this perspective, it's very, very relevant. Rinki, I think from all of us, we wish you all the best. I think there's so much to learn from you and aspire, and you must become a trainer. I think that's one thing that, you know, will get more women in this trade. And like you said, there's so many challenges that women face, and only maybe a women trainer can actually not just motivate, but understand and bring in that change fundamentally. So thank you so much. Stick around. I'm sure there are a lot of questions and a lot of people want to talk to you.
yes, ma'am. One more thing, I'm a civil engineer also. So,
Yes.
Ramendra sir and Gayatri ma'am also saying ki we are eliminating from the construction side. I'm an engineer, so ma'am, if any vacancies are there, they only want to hire a male candidate. That's a huge problem for us. So from that, we have to move in software companies for the job, because we don't get any job, higher post job for civil engineer. And if we are graduate, we are capable enough to do that work, but we are not getting that post. They only want male candidate for that. So that's the issue. Okay, हमें वो they don't have faith, like just Ramendra sir has said कि they don't have faith on us. Like if they give any chance to them, they'll definitely prove that. Like
Yeah,
they will,
that's true.
yeah, yes.
मतलब साइट वाले काम के लिए तो लेते ही नहीं है. Site work also they
Yes,
assume.
ma'am. For the site engineering also, they are just like only male candidates are allowed. Just simply they write in their application forms like male candidates are only allowed. So
Yeah.
if we didn't getting any chance, then how will we prove कि we are, हम 14 hours भी खड़े होके काम कर सकते हैं, then 18 hours भी कर सकते हैं. Firstly, give us a chance. If we are not going to like perform good, then you should say ki girls are not or
Yeah.
women are not to for right for this post.
No, absolutely. I think
Yes,
thank you, Rinki. इसी बात पे we'll move ahead and discuss with Mr. JP Shroff. I mean, he's the one we need to pester a little bit more on कि ऐसा क्यों होता है and how can we influence industry to really take that role. Of course, he wears many hats, and today it's really, like we said, it's a co-creating a solution. So we want to hear challenges that, you know, not just in training, not just for the participants, but what does industry also face? What kind of challenges in providing these kind of climate or a situation for women workers to come forward? So Mr. Shroff is the managing director and chairman of Shroff Group. He currently is chairman of IGBC Pune chapter and Kushal-CREDAI Pune, as well as director on the board of Construction Sector Skill Council and on the board of Painting Sector Skill Council. He was awarded the National Award for E-Governance in 2014 for Project Kushal and Glory of India Award presented by Institute of Economic Studies in 2009. Mr. Shroff is an industry leader and educationalist who has contributed immensely in the field of construction, skilling, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. Thank you so much, Mr. Shroff, for coming today. I know it's been a pretty hectic schedule for you. So like we were discussing last time, from your experience, of course, of CREDAI Pune, and also from somebody who's been in industry, we know that, you know, at present, right now, there is not a climate which is very conducive for women construction worker. What do you think can be done? And, you know, what are the challenges that probably industry face? And how do you think, let's say, the policy environment or other, you know, like union, how can we, you know, facilitate those challenges which the industry might be facing?
Thank you, Nidhi. And I think I'll break the monotony by a small joke. We have Rinky who spoke so well, and I'll just share a small anecdote. There was this doctor, and a very famous doctor, and as normal, the taps were leaking. So his wife would pester him, "You are such a famous man, but can't you get a single plumber to come and get it repaired? You have so many builder friends." So finally, on a Sunday morning, he managed to get a plumber. The plumber went in. After 10 minutes, he came out and asked for 1,000 rupees. So he told the doctor. The doctor asked him, "Kitna ho gaya?" He said, 1,000 rupees. He says, "अरे यार, तुम 10 मिनट पहले आए थे, तुमने 10 मिनट में आए, मैं लोगों को, I look at their reports, I look at so many things, I spend a good 1 hour, and after that, even then, I sometimes have people not giving me 500 rupees as fees." So he quietly goes next to the doctor and says, "Doctor साहब, सच्ची बोलूं, पहले मैं भी डॉक्टर था." Simply meaning the importance of a plumber in our industry. There is so few of them and so many capable. Rinki has ventured out in trying something different. But let me share my experiences. I've been training since 2010. Kushal was the first organization that got a grant of 18 crores from the government of India, from NSDC, to train 20,000 plus people, because we are CREDAI. So I remember when I went to the North Block and they asked me, "Mr. Shroff, you belong to the industry, the richest industry probably. Why do you need grant money?" And this is where the answer of our industry came forth. I don't know what gave me that intuition, but I said, "Madam, you are the richest organization," she says, "so why do you need grant money?" And that's when she was the chairman of the interviewing committee at the North Block. And I said, "Madam, I think you have decided not to give me money. So probably I'll say thank you very much and I'll proceed." So she says, "Mr. Shroff, you're a very arrogant man, but tell me, how are you proposing to use this 18 crores for construction? What kind of building, what kind of infrastructure that you have in mind?" And I said, "Madam, I don't have any infrastructure. I don't intend having any infrastructure. I have a letter from 400 members of CREDAI Pune who have offered their sites with 4 lakh workers on the site to do on-the-job training. I will train them when they are working." So this is the genesis of our training activities. Look at what happens in a construction industry. It is cyclic. So people who do construction normally are farmers who have completed their sowing. They are now waiting for the rains to pour in and the crop to grow. So they now start looking for optional activities to sort of supplement their income, and then they come to the sites and they learn some trades. So it has never been a mainstream activity because, again, there is no continuity. Not many jobs have a continuity of activity. For example, an electrician has to lay pipes in a slab, then he goes back, then the walls are built, then he again cuts sleeves into the walls and then puts the pipes, then again waits for the plaster to be completed. So there is so many things do not have continuity. Even the plumbing, the waterproofing is done, the pipes are laid, then the plumber goes back. So any plumber wanting to do continuous work will not get it possibly on one project. He would have to look at 10 or 11 projects simultaneously to keep his activity ongoing for the full month. So that is the first, the genesis of our business. Construction industry is an industry that does not assure, like a manufacturing unit, continuity of work, number one. And then it is also, it has been, as Mr. Ramendra Kumar said very truly, it has been the bastion of male. It has been somehow been associated with the male activities. So this is where this is the dogma, or this is the weight we carry when we started. We begin of trying to get women to come into this mainstream construction industry. So what happened now? When women were working, as you spoke about 35% of them being on the construction industry, and suddenly, as Gayathri rightly said, or probably we have this statistics that 50% are no more there. Why? So I'll tell you very interestingly, there is something called the marriage market in the lower cadre people. So what is decided on who is going to get married? For example, I can tell you that a mason, it does not get a good bride because he's a mason, because that is not respected. And therefore, people do, I realized that many of us were losing good, initially it was a hierarchical learning of jobs. Father would learn from his son. But when we started working on sites, we realized we didn't have people wanting to take up these jobs. They were no more aspirational. They would work in what you call retail malls, probably as janitors in the mall, but they would be called, if somebody asked them, where are you working? He would say, I would work in a mall, because he had an outfit, and he was, nobody knew what he was really doing. He was just working in a mall. But if he said he was working as a mason on a site, he was not really being looked up as. So it was never aspirational, and unfortunately, it's not so. Pan the world, it is what they have, what they call as guild. They have master level craftsmen. So I met a master craftsman in Australia. He drove in a E-class Mercedes Benz, and he probably was earning same amount of money as that of a doctor there. So there is a big difference in what is being done in this country in terms of, or what is the recognition skills get in terms of the job he does. So let me give you an example. 2017, India participates for the first time in the World Olympics at Sao Paulo, and I take two young boys for tiling and bricklaying. There are about 37 countries that participate in these two skills. And here is a boy of 5 feet 1 inch with a plumb bob. And there are about 35 odd countries with 6 feet plus boys. And they have laser beams and laser plumb bobs or laser levels. And in spite of that, this young boy comes and brings a medallion of excellence. We repeat the history again in Abu Dhabi. We then again continue to win medallion of excellence in Abu Dhabi for tiling and bricklaying, and also in Kazan. So simply saying that in spite of having not great training facilities, the Indian skill sets are amazingly different. And we are people, as I say, I always say, sir, जुगाड़ करने में हमारे जैसे लोग नहीं है, वो काम कर पाएंगे. You know, many of those Britishers or the Europeans follow a very regimental way of doing things. I have seen my young boys doing things so differently that that they are able to win, and that is what was different about India. So this is where I shall say that the country, now this boy, when he comes back to India, listen to what happens. He's hardly recognized. Why does a Sachin Tendulkar have a fan following, and why does not my young boy who won a gold medal in water technology? This boy from Odisha won the gold medal, where he beat 35 odd country young boys and won the gold medal in water technology. He's from C.V. Raman College. Why does he not become like a Sachin Tendulkar of India? Nobody knows about him also. Nobody knows about him. So that is where we have to look at how we can change. So, as Gayathri said, paradigm shift. We have to create heroes. We have to create people who are looked up to. And let me tell you, this paradigm shift cannot happen by just talking about it. It has to begin somewhere. Who is going to be responsible? Is NSDC going to be responsible? NSDC is a PPP where industry is supposed to be asking and doing what industry is supposed to be telling what should be done to make people industry compliant. Are we able to see that the women folks are also included in the industry compliant norms? I don't think so. Also, let me share now a couple of experiments that we did. About 20 years back, we built the first rural building center, which was sponsored by Hudco at Vagoli. And that is where we discussed this at length. We said women are carrying weight. Why are they carrying 20 bricks on their head? Why are they carrying sand? And the men are building. Why can't we change it? Why can't the men carry more weight? Why can't the men carry 25 bricks and the women stand on and build the walls? And we did that for 5 days. On the 6th day, the women did not come. We went to their homes. They said, sir, hum nahi aa sakte. This was 20 years back. It was a case of pure male chauvinism. And the husbands would not allow them to become masons at all, as they did not want to accept them. The same people, same women would get for 700 rupees per day against 300 that they were getting. So that was the first experiment 20 years back. Then recently, we did a 35 women batch of masons, which was whose certification, Mrs. Anuaga, the women entrepreneur who changed Thermax from a company that was virtually defunct into the most profitable company in Pune. she honored them, and we have 35 masons who are working, women masons who are working in Pune, and they are still doing extremely well. Now, let me share another experiment. Now, 2019, a girl called Nagma, she passed. She successfully won the medal, gold medal in regionals from Bombay, or that is Western region. She was the silver medalist in India Skills in 2019, and we trained her to go to Abu Dhabi. A woman mason, that is 4 years back. Rinki is now in 2022. Imagine a woman mason in 2019, 18, 19. And we were so keen that she goes there, and we tried our best. But unfortunately, let me be honest, the physical requirements of a 24-hour World Skill Championships of carrying 1,400 bricks at a speed, we felt she would not do justice as the flag bearer of the Indian constituency. So we had to probably tilt our choice for the young boy, because we felt she was physically might not be able to sustain the kind of stress in terms of the cutting and the carrying the bricks, etc., was necessary. So this is reality, and let's accept it. I must also share that in Chandigarh, where Rinki went, we had a young girl from Bihar who was participating, again, a civil engineer who was participating to become an aspiring competitor for the new World Skills of Shanghai, but she unfortunately didn't make it. And we had a girl from Maharashtra, Ankita, who made it to the India Skills, but she did not win. So therefore, it's not. I must say that we are blessed as Kushal, that we were able to nurture at least 3 girl competitors in a skill like bricklaying to reach as far as they could. And these girls are now very keenly involved in helping us, if not really on the physical training, but setting up systems or creating a small kind of software to analyze improvement of how the student is improving in the process of being trained for going to Shanghai. So these are a couple of experiments that we are doing. So paradigm shift can happen only if this forum of ours looks at trying something differently. We can always talk to NSDC. NSDC has never said do not. They would always be very happy. In fact, it should be us that suggest that certain special privileges be given to women workers. Again, I'm telling you that that nobody in the construction industry would want to go and skill themselves, losing their wages, as Ramendra Kumarji said. It has to be on the job. It has to be when they are earning their wages. So therefore, this is what that has to be brought to the notice of the government. Government should set aside special funds or special concessions for women workers. And I don't see things will not happen. I think it's very doable, and it is taking shape. Gayathri is there. Ramendra Kumar is there. If we approach the government as a group, I think there could be lots that we can do to make this happen. So here I am with my little experiments on skilling of women. And I think I'm really glad that I could at least contribute so much. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Shroff. I think it's been very interesting to learn from your experiences. And also from the fact that, there needs to be on-site training, which industry probably needs to take in, and the government needs to facilitate that. So I think that's a learning that we've taken. Of course, the rest of it in respect to that there is no lack of skill. It's not that women cannot learn the skill, but you have to create an ecosystem for skilling. But what we are really talking about, that how do you mainstream an everyday activity, right? Everyday construction site, can I see a woman being there? And not just 1 or 2 pilots or exemplars that we have, which are necessary to encourage women to come out and do those trainings. Thank you so much for sharing.
I must share a couple of things. The one thing is the woman is also a mother, is also a housewoman, and she has to do so many roles. So therefore, I mean, even if probably we make the ecosystem welcome to women to become masons, trust me, with the kind of responsibilities that a woman has, we would really have to see how we can get them to come to these kind of skills eventually. So there would be very few Rinkis that would come up forth and say, I want to learn plumbing, or I want to learn bricklaying. It's still a challenge, but then yes, it's doable.
True. So I mean, these challenges, I mean, they're not just only for construction sector. they become more pronounced probably for the construction sector, because we see the women are carrying 3 children and doing all the construction work. There are no crutches. There are a lot of those challenges, but a lot of those challenges are also in other trades. The patriarchal system is not just for the construction sector that we are seeing, or the wage, the discrepancy is not something only in this sector, but there are more nuances which come forward in this sector, I think. Taking this opportunity, I would like to welcome our next panelist, who's Bharti Birla, I would love to, get a more perspective from, also the policy environment and her experience with the industry. So Ms. Birla is the Chief Technical Advisor for ILO Japan South Asia projects on sustainable global supply chain in South Asia and safety and health for all plantation workers in South Asia. She holds a bachelor degree in pharmacy and law from Delhi University, an MBA in marketing, and is pursuing LLM in labor and employment law from York University, Canada. She has 25 plus years of experience and is an expert on gender, informality, skills, and fundamental principles and rights at work. Bharti, thank you for coming in today. And so you've heard various perspectives, and from your position at ILO and your work with the informal sector and construction workers, how do you see all of this coming together? So what is this ecosystem that we need to work in? And ILO as an organization works with the government, works with the trade unions, works with the private sector. So you have a great convening power as such, and can look from a broader perspective and, almost help us stitch what we were talking today. So over to you, Bharti, and we would love to learn from you on this. And if you'd like to share your screen, please be free to do that.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, and thank you so much, Kirtee, for setting this wonderful interactive forum where we are able to bring together people from very different backgrounds. I know Ramendra for a long time, and he's been working on the issue of construction workers. He's been part of the discussions on BOC board, so knows the sector in depth, how it really works. And Gayathri, who's been, a stalwart in terms of bringing skills to the informal sector. She's done, LabourNet has done exemplary work in India. And also CREDAI, Jaiprakash brings a lot of experience from the industry side. So it has been a wonderful experience to hear all of them. And I just want to take their own discussion forward. And we've heard a lot of things about women, their education level, access to skills, safety. And I just want to bring these together because if you're talking about a transformational change, we need to look at it from a broader perspective, because these things are happening all across, not just in the construction sector. And then, sort of give one or two examples which have been done in India along with the unions and membership-based organizations and with employers. And some of these models can also be extrapolated to the construction sector. So I just want to share this and with you and leave you with some thoughts in terms of what can be done, as I understand that this is first of the series, and we will be having future conversations as well on the issue of construction workers and skilling and how do we do that. So as most of the speakers said, that when we talk about women, we talk about occupational segregation. We see that women are in low wages. They suffer, they do a lot of work, but they're paid less. Many of them actually work for much more longer hours than men. You showed the pictures of women carrying so much load on their head, but somehow, whether it is construction or other kinds of form, they actually remain invisible in the labor market. They're not even captured by the data and the statistics. Many women themselves do not perceive themselves as workers. And this blindness in data and statistics also spreads across to the policy making and to the labor laws as well. Many of them are migrants. Many of them have no social protection. But before I really move into the whole construction sector, I have a small quiz for you. I want to ask you, if these statements are true or false. Women don't want to go out for work, and men also don't want women to go out for work. Is this correct? Because this is what we keep hearing all the time. And I'll show you the answers. I'm just leaving you with some thoughts. You can think about them. Second, what we really keep hearing is that most women take up occupations which are based from home, and they do it in their leisure time. And then another thing that we keep hearing is that jobs are available and women don't take it. Now, is this really true? We also keep hearing that education is important, and since women are illiterate, they don't have education, they suffer a lot because of it. And the last one, men and women, they both have difficulties in getting higher skilled jobs or managerial jobs once they have children, because their attention is divided. Now, are these statements true or false? Because this is important for us to analyze how it will operate in construction sector as well. Now, looking at these questions, ILO actually did a huge survey, Gallup survey, which was done in all countries across the world, including India. And this is what we learned from there. What we learned was that women do want to work outside. Around 70% of the women said that they want to be in paid work. And men also agreed. Around 67% men said, yes, we want our women to be in paid work. Now, if you really look at this, the perception that we have and the survey does not align. So men also want the women to go and engage in paid work. What they really want is safety of their women. They want their women to be safe. And that's the question that Gayathri also raised, Ramendra also raised, that, how do we provide safety at workplace? We also find, and that is sort of challenging, is that across the globe, the data shows that women are less likely to be employed compared to men, around 26 percentage point. And another thing that you may want to look at is that in the labor market, only 45% of the women are employed globally. So it's not just India, it is the global scenario. And if you break up this employment and see who's not working, you will find that 21.2% of the youth are neither in employment nor in education, and that's critical, from the skilling point of view and from the employment point of view. But if you further break it down, you see that out of this 21.2%, it is around 70% girls who are neither in education nor in training, and that's the potential that we're talking about, which is totally left out from the labor market. Another issue is that education. We've spoken about literacy. We've spoken about the challenge of why women may not get into higher skilled roles because there's a lack of education. But when we actually look at the data, in a more meaningful way and break it up, we see that women do not get the same employment dividend as men. So when we see university degree, we see that around 41.5% of the women with a university degree are neither employed or they are outside the labor market. And if you compare it with men, it's only 17.2%. So education alone is not really responsible to close this gender gap within the labor market, because they are educated, but still they don't get the jobs. So what is the reason for that? Most of the time, education is not the main reason, as Gayathri and Ramendra also pointed out, and Jaiprakash also mentioned, it is something else. And that is the reason why we have to look at the whole issue of perception, where the women are perceived to be low skilled, even though they may not be low skilled. Many of them actually do very highly skilled work. Look at the home-based work where the women are doing embroidery. It's highly skilled. It's labor intensive, highly skilled. You look at agriculture, you look at carrying bricks, when Jaiprakash was talking about, switching the role, giving the role of mason to women, men would realize how difficult it is to carry, 10 to 15 bricks on their head and climb up 2 flights of stairs to reach second floor where the construction is going on. Nobody wants to do that. It's the women who are bearing this physical work, but still they are perceived to be biologically not as strong as men, even though they are. Look at nurses. Nurses actually carry much more weight even than the male construction worker. They are the ones who are lifting the body. So this perception is very difficult to change. And what we also see that in South Asian economies, women are more in the informal sector, and they are the ones who also are discriminated on a multiple layer, not just because of they being women, but also because of their migration, ethnicity, caste, social background, HIV/AIDS status, disability, and of course, sexual harassment and violence, which comes in. And if we look at who becomes the managers, uh, this survey also found a very interesting thing is that motherhood penalty for women is increasing uh, to the fold of around 38.4%, and it is increasing in the last few years. And what we see is that around 45.8% of the mothers of young children are employed, um, compared to 53% of women who don't have children. So, women who don't have children are more likely to be employed compared to the women who don't have children. But when you compare this figure with men, it becomes far more interesting. So, what we've seen is that if a man becomes a father, the chances of that person getting a job increases by 74.9%, and for a woman, it decreases to 25.1%. And if you look at the managerial positions, men who have children in the age group of 0 to 5 years, their wages actually go up. They get into managerial positions as soon as they become fathers, whereas only 31.4% women who have children actually become managers. And the perception is that if man is the breadwinner, man brings money to the home, he's responsible to run the home, and now he has children, and therefore he needs a promotion and he needs increase in wages. So that's a very interesting survey findings and data findings which have been analyzed as part of the global Gallup survey as well, and the international statistics we have on women and men work. And I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this picture. This was posted by the Mahindra group head. If you are running a race, look at the amount of work which men and women do in managerial or high skill positions. Well, women have to take care of the household, and we don't have the provision of public care services where elderly can be taken care of or where the children can be taken care of. And when we come to issues like construction, sight of women carrying children at the construction site is so common, and even as managers, women have to do it. And here I just want to share an anecdote with you. Many times when I would go on mission and travel for my work, people would ask me about my children, and when I would tell them that I have a small girl, and they would say, oh, so who's taking care of her? But when my husband goes for work, or travels, nobody asks him the same question, who's taking care of your small girl? It is sort of assumed that I have the motherhood responsibility, but men are not asked the same question. So how do we change this paradigm of unpaid care work which men and women have to take? Men also do unpaid care work. They also drop children to school, they get milk from the vendor, or they do a bit of shopping, they drop children to school. But if you weigh the amount of unpaid care work which men and women do, it will take around 209 years to bring this gap down. Currently, the global statistics is that women do 4.5 hours of unpaid work every day compared to 1 hour and 23 minutes of work which men do. And this is global figure. When you come to India and Pakistan, men, the amount of unpaid work that men do reduces to 30 minutes, and proportionately the volume of the work for women goes up. So if we are not going to look at the issue of unpaid care work, we cannot solve the issue of women in employment, whether it is low skilled or high skilled, it doesn't matter. We need to look at the issues in the context of jobs and this factors, accumulation of factors that are hindering women's employment and the quality of jobs. And what we really can summarize is that education matter, but it is not the main reason. Caregiving has a biggest role, the unpaid care work. Motherhood penalties, they are very significant in the context of women, and how it pans out between men and women. And of course, the issue of gender pay gaps. But more important are these issues of violence and harassment at work, women doing hazardous work but not being recognized as hazardous work, different facets of technology, women's access to technology and how technology can help women or actually weaken women in employment. And as Gayatri said, a very important point is that we don't want to have one rock star. We want to have many women. Unless we have this collective voice and representation of women as a group, it is very difficult to put them into um, jobs which are so demanding. And discrimination and stereotypical hiring is another important challenge. Gender pay gaps, Jaiprakash ji also raised it, Ramendra also raised it. How do we bring equality in payment for women and men? Globally, across the world, we see that women are paid less, and there is a 20% gender gap that exists between men and women. Intersectionality issues, they come from different geographies, language, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and all these overlaps on the fact that they are women, and this issue of power becomes very dominant at the workplace. Now coming to the issue of skilling, and this is what it's sort of summarizing, this slide is sort of summarizing what has been already said before, that there are socio-cultural barriers in terms of accessing skills. Women cannot put enough number of hours because of the burden of the care work which they have to do. Safety at work sites is a challenge. On-job facilities, toilets, restrooms, care facilities, they don't exist for women's, and they need it. And if these things are not provided, if the provision of care is not provided, it is very difficult for women to actually stay in such demanding and challenging situations. Violence and harassment, lack of transportation, perception about gender roles in construction. What Rinki was saying, that women can also be very good plumbers. Why not? But who's going to see them as skilled workers? And also, women need to have this collective voice, the critical voice and mass, to be able to actually crack the job market and be there in large numbers. Now, ILO does have a convention that looks at skills, and it also talks about, apart from providing policy guidelines and, education and training and focus on lifelong learning, it says that skills is a shared responsibility of the government, employers, and workers, and each one has to play a significant role. But what it also talks about, and which is very important in the context of our discussion, is that skills are fundamental too, but they're not sufficient for having a gainful, decent job. We need to link skills with employment opportunities and decent work, and unless that linking happen, just by providing skills, things will not change. And uh, you know in the context of the ILO and the work that we've been doing for so many years, uh, do skills really lead to better jobs? And this is something which Gayatri was also questioning, because what is important is the outcome of skilling. And what we see in the job market is that normally the skills premium is not paid. So even if you're skilling, it doesn't mean that it will result in a higher pay or a better job. Uh, the example that you see here is from domestic workers, and in India, we worked with NSDC to set up Domestic Work Sector Skill Council. But even if you skill domestic workers, will the employers pay them more for doing jhadu pocha? No. Unless we build a skills premium that women can actually demand more, they have a collective voice, the skill premium will not be possible to get. So how do we build a skills premium? How do we make this voice, collective voice? So what we experimented with was, in the context of skilling, was how we can bring women together. How do we form collectives, how they can be supported with rights-based organizations, how these women who are skilled can actually engage in collective bargaining, how support networks can be created for them through different civil society organizations, trade unions, membership based organizations, how they can provide them that support, and how we can look at possible local employment options. Just to illustrate, in Chhattisgarh, we worked with government of Chhattisgarh and rural development division to develop barefoot engineers, and many of the women came forward as masons. Also, many of these workers were bonded bricklayer workers who were trained in different mason skills. But this is also possible when when we work closely with the local employers. Unless that partnership is achieved, it will not be possible. Another example that I can share with you is from the garment sector, which is again one of the ILO work. We looked at how skills are not just enough. You need to add on life skills and soft skills along with that. And you need unions to help you know workers talk about wages, social protection, and you need a very robust system of pre and post placement support. And many of these are migrants. uh, we heard Jaiprakash ji also talking about the issue of migration. They come from villages, they need support in the urban areas. Who's providing that support? Who's providing them with an opportunity for future learning and return strategies with more skilled work? We spoke about Odisha. Plumbers are the best from Odisha. Tile laying is best from Chhattisgarh. When these workers come to big urban states, learn more skills, when they go back to Chhattisgarh, they also increase the wages in local areas, and that is very well appreciated by the governments. So the question is, how do we make it as a selling point that when these workers go out and come back, it will also increase wages, it will also increase employment, and Chhattisgarh becomes known for best tile laying, and Odisha becomes known for best plumbing workers? So how do we create a something like a you have geographical indications and intellectual property? How do we make this our selling point as a state? And that's something which the governments have to look at, working with different social partners and skill providers. uh, Another example that I can give you from the child labor projects is we looked at how we need to engage with potential employers, and that was the key component of this child labor program. We, of course, looked at skilling, we looked at rights based skills, we looked at life and soft skill. But what was important was to engage with potential employers who can actually absorb these workers, who the skilling providers are training. And here I think CREDAI becomes a very important partner in this whole construction skilling environment. Uh, I mean, one, of course, they are the industry leaders and they know what quality and what skills they need, but also they're paying for it. CREDAI members are paying 2% or 1% construction workers cess. And this cess fund is being used for different kinds of skilling programs or different kinds of opportunities that can come to the workers. So how CREDAI can actually play a very big role. And I think Gayatri gave a very nice example of how we can start. We can start by building workplace, homes, and that the workers who are getting skills training on job can actually make homes for themselves. In bricklands also this happens. So how do we try to bring all this together, and use what resources that are already there with us to actually create an ecosystem which can provide better services to the women so that they can come and work in the construction areas? So, of course, there were issues in terms of which Ravindra ji also raised about stipend. What will happen when the women come to work? They're mostly daily wage workers. They cannot leave job. So, are we giving them stipends or on-job training, which Jaiprakash ji said is a very good example of how you don't really need to worry about these things. This can be embedded. And we also know that one size may not fit all. We need to have customized pilots and see how these pilots can be scaled up, and innovations need to be supported. And I'm sure there's a lot of experience in this webinar today to bring together that experience and record lessons from these pilots, and create a comprehensive program for to have women more in construction work and more in skilled construction work. So I think with that, I will sort of close my presentation by saying that skilling is very important, and it serves actually multiple purposes, not just in employment and income security and building safety, safe and healthy workplaces. It also enhances productivity for their employers, for the big construction companies. It provides stable economy. Of course, it from the workers' point of view, it helps bring voice of the workers together. It allows for the workers to negotiate and have fair treatment and access, and social protection, which is also very, very important in the context, COVID, where we know the importance of social protection is ever increasing. So skill ecosystem can actually serve multiple purposes. And I want to congratulate um Nidhi and Kirtee ji to actually discuss this very important issue from different facets and bring this to, and I think we need to discuss it at a larger policy arena, how we can all work together on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bharti, for bringing this. I think it was a good overview and a good, very important lessons on what all each participant or the stakeholder that we have today can actually do. So from the industry, what can be done at the policy level, what can be done. You also spoke about examples of, the Tarangvani, where how do you, so Gayathri had spoken about how women would prefer to come in a group. Now that group would require certain kind of support. And Tarangvani example of yours, which is like a radio which supports migrant workers, is such a helpful tool in something like that. And from the consumer end, being aware of what you are getting. I think so it kind of helped us stitch the entire value chain of the construction industry and the role that each stakeholder can do. And it's necessary that all of us play this role right now. So it really can't be one responsibility only of the industry, or responsibility only of the skilling ecosystem, or responsibility only of the government. It won't really work if we want this paradigm systemic change. Thank you so much for coming. At this point, I would request, there's some questions, but I'm sure Kirtee ji also has some questions, and I would like him to come into the conversation. And since Kirtee ji and I and the entire team has been discussing this aspect since many, many months. So I'm sure there are more queries that you're running in your mind also, Kirtee ji. Please come forward.
Yes. No, this has been very, very educative and very useful discussion that's going on. But I started by saying that, I want to put, as a matter of fact, originally I had idea to kind of put across 3 proposals. But because it's already 7:25, I think I'll just deal with one. And that is this. We're talking about incremental change. We're talking about gradual development, step-by-step process. We're talking about evolutionary process. Fact remains that we're talking about has not happened for generations, it's not happened for decades. It has not happened in rural India. It has not happened in urban India. It has not happened when real estate essentially has taken over urbanization. Cities essentially are real estate. It's not happened when new technology has come and new ways of dealing with things have come. It's not happened when construction is happening on an incredible scale. No one talked about millions of houses under affordable category just 5 years ago. So it's happening on such a scale. New management structures have come in place, where skill have come. As a matter of fact, we have seen that our masons and carpenters have gone and built Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah. Despite all that happening, we have not seen this happening. We have not seen women getting into skilled construction jobs. And therefore, I personally feel all this analysis is very interesting, but to me, it's very simplistic. And I think we've got to look at this whole issue structurally as well. I'm just putting one postulate for everyone to kind of consider, and that is this. And I have seen in this very particular area things changes in my own lifetime. Like say, for instance, I'm a student of urbanization and cities, and I've been observing Ahmedabad city for the last 50 years. In last 45 years, I've hardly seen a woman mayor. In last 5 years, I've seen 3 times, 4 times, 4 women mayors in Ahmedabad. And how did this happen? This happened because the whole idea of reservation came in. Reservation in these political positions. Now, what I'm trying to kind of suggest to this wonderful group, and I really want this debate to go on. We may not have enough time, but I'm just going to pursue this little longer. Suppose there was a fiat. Suppose there was a policy that 30% of all jobs on construction sites, skilled jobs, must be done by women. How will things change? Would industry change? Would contractors change? Would their ways of working change? Will education change? Will training change? What I'm trying to ask is this: that is there, because, and I think what is very important in my understanding is leapfrogging. What is very important is quantum jumping on this areas, because we just go on talking about things, for years and years and years and decades and decades. We've got to find ways, and this is happening. In Haryana, they're talking about 75% of jobs in private sector to local people. No one ever thought about this. I'm saying, if you are really concerned about women, if you're talking about their empowerment, if you are really concerned about that they have the ability, but the industry is discriminatory, processes don't allow, the hereditary kind of structures don't allow this to happen, can we really find ways through which it will happen? And I'm just talking about one of them. My suggestion is this, my consideration, thought for consideration is that if there were 30% reservations in skilled jobs for women on all construction sites, or big construction sites, how will the industry change? What will happen? Can we take that as a bargaining point? Can we take this? Can the labor unions look at the associations of construction workers, say, look, this is what we want? Is it possible? Is it political? And it's a political thing. It's empowerment thing. It's essentially, I think, catching the issue in an entirely different kind of way. So that is, and I don't want to take much time. I think I can talk about it and land there are 2, 3 other ideas, but let me just put one. If this were to happen, how things will change. And I would like Shroff Sahib to have, and I want everyone else to kind of respond to this. Just one proposal, what would happen? Would anything change? And I honestly believe that we've got to kind of, we've got to think of paradigm shift. We've got to kind of think about looking at problems differently, because, I think analysis, in a conventional kind of sense, honestly doesn't take us anywhere. An issue, Shroff Sahib, as you know very well, is not training. Training is doable. What is really issue is how do you kind of make women acceptable? How do they get ingrained? How do they really become integral to the processes and work that happens at that level? Training is not very difficult. You can do that. As a matter of fact, 2 case studies that we have done, and I think Nidhi didn't talk about this. We probably will talk about this a little later. But training is possible. Problem is getting them a job, getting them, I think in a position where they could really kind of earn, where they could sustain over a period of time, and really kind of establish that position, and then become empowered, and of course then change the things. So that is the proposal that I'm putting forward to this wonderful panel we have.
So do you want me to respond, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
I want everyone to respond.
Yeah, great. I mean, let me share an experiment with you. You know, when we started skilling, we started thinking that very soon a skilled workforce should become mandatory. So we started talking to the government of Maharashtra, and we said, why don't you begin? See, private enterprise, probably I would not be able to insist. But with government, I thought that they would probably listen to us. And we said, why don't you insist on making government contracts by saying that your final bill will be released only after over a period of your of the tender duration. If you are not able to skill and show that 60% of the worker they were skilled or were skilled or being skilled during the duration of the tender, only then would your final bill be released or certain amount would be retained. This was one debate we believe would make a big change in the skilling pull kind of a approach instead of push kind of an approach. We wanted the government to lead and want people who would be skilled doing the job that the government wants to do. So this was one thing. Similarly, sir, when you speak about reservations for women, I have certain concerns. Do we have this what you call the size of women workers already with us who would want to fill up this gap? So are we going to end up saying that 100 workers needed, but I don't, and 30% being women, out of that I don't still have 10 women wanting to join us, or they are qualified to join us. So therefore, what comes first? Getting the quantum mass of workers wanting to be a part of the construction industry, and then thereby insisting on a certain reservation, or just beginning with the reservation and then asking the woman, here's an opportunity, please join in, would be a question that would always remain, you know. So whether it is the push or the pull, you know, that is one thing. And as again, Bharti ji spoke about the various issues that women have. So are we prepared to create workplaces that will be suitable to women and women working on sites? So a lot of preparations need to be done to sort of talk about 30% women being allowed to work. And then I think, so it is that we will have to address before we start off even discussing that women of 30%, minimum of 30% to 20%, whatever numbers, that's not important. The reservation for women employment would be insisted upon, would be after due diligence and lot of preparations. That is the way I think we would have to go about. That's my...
I will not disagree. I just wanted to make a small point about this. You know, when this reservation came in the political position that the sarpanch, you know, in the villages and mayors in cities, this came up all the time. That, oh, what will happen? That they'll become sarpanch, but the husband will run the show. That is not what is the experience is now. What one is saying is this, and this is like what Gandhi said. He said, you go first. We know, then we'll decide how to manage our country. You British go first. I really think in the context of women, in the context of their empowerment, in the context of they're getting the jobs that they deserve to get. And not only that, I'm an architect. And believe me, one of the major problems we have in the construction industry is the quality of work that happens. And I personally feel if women were to kind of get into this, women will bring in entirely different concept to quality of workmanship. So there are many, many factors. So what I'm trying to say is this, you will always have this argument. What will happen in transition? Are we prepared? These are the battles where we got now not to worry about, I think, on how prepared we are. What is very important is what steps when we take. And I do agree there will be lots of parallel processes. There will be a lot of steps to be taken, lots of preparation that has to happen. But if you take the step, there's a chance that things will begin to happen. Contractors will no option but to think about it. Real estate companies will have no option to think about it. And they're very creative. They're very entrepreneurial. Once I think they are compelled, they will think creatively and they will do things and things will happen.
Thank you. Bharti or Gayatri, would you like to respond to, and I think this is something which is really fundamental, about feminization of labor. Is it something, is there some response that you would like to give in respect to construction sector on this?
I can come in. If we look at the global data and we look at the industries where women are more, or wherever there is feminization of labor, look at the garment sector, leather sector, we also find that the working conditions are really bad. There is a lot of forced overtime. Women in garment sector are not able to go beyond 35 or 40 years of age. They choose to move out from that sector because the work is very, very demanding, and there is no provision of care, and safe work. Violence and harassment is common. Unreasonable targets are given. So, and another example that I want to share with you is that why feminization of labor is happening in these sectors. It's also because they don't want the voice. First, the women were actually coming to garment sector from the local areas, and now we see women migrating from Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh to Bangalore, Karnataka for work. And you see this not just in India, but you also see many women going from Bangladesh to Jordan for garment work. Now, why is it happening? Why this feminization is happening? Because the women are, they lack this collective voice and strength. And therefore the employers also want it, and the market forces tend to exploit this. So unless we are going to give a condition which is suitable, create an ecosystem where the women have this collective power uh, to really face these challenges, the market forces would like to exploit them. We don't have many women in the garment sector in North India, but now the things are changing. Employers want women because they see the success of it in the south. They also want women in the north, but not many women are coming forward, and the major reason is safety at work. It's not that women don't want to come. So this, I agree that women need to be there in construction sector, and we need to have more women, not just in construction, but in all sectors. That enabling environment needs to be created. Whether it is, it cannot be a mandatory provision, because if you're going to make it mandatory, it may not result in decent work. The market forces will exploit that situation, and we know, even you look at the minimum wage structure in India, all the tasks which are done by women have lower wage rate. Tailors, cutters, the people who cut in the garment factories are paid more compared to the women who stitch the garment. Now, is stitching less skilled than cutting? But that's how it is perceived. So unless we look at the dynamics of gender and how it plays out and create an ecosystem where all partners come together, the industry is very important. The rights-based organizations, unions are very important to balance that interest, and skill training providers who really know. And I think Gayatri said it in a very nice way. What is the outcome? Are the women getting skills premium? So those ecosystems also need to be maintained. I'm not saying there should be mandatory reservation, but there should be an enabling environment to come to allow women to come forward. And of course, we saw many girls, working from who are deaf and dumb, who were trained by Gram Tarang, and going to work in garment factories. We saw the productivity was very high. Women want to show, and we heard Rinki, look at how passionate she was to showcase that women can do. And such examples are tremendous in our country, and women can do. It's just that we need to create that enabling environment, and an environment where they're not exploited by the market forces. So that's what
Bharti, I think if I can take just half a 5 seconds of this. You see, when it comes to the issues of inequality and discrimination, dependence on market shows us in a country like India, it doesn't work. If you really were to allow market to function in land, there'll be no affordable housing in this country at all. Private sector is not doing it. government sector is doing it because it's doing, I think, and I think you've got to really examine this whole issue of market and its ability to deliver in areas of such absolute discrimination and inequality. We got to really examine this very, very seriously. And we've got to then jump and take position on behalf of those who are discriminated against and those who are really being kept out of the market. Market cannot and does not deliver. That is one good lesson that we've learned from housing side in urbanization. Just cannot. And state intervention has become absolute must. And I think, as a matter of fact, it's not as vigorous as it ought to be. And I think, in the next decade or so, I think, when urbanization becomes much more stronger, we will have to kind of think of ways when it happens and happens more. And I think, so what I'm saying is this, that even in this context, providing a push, and this whole issue is this, it's not that women are not there. Issue is women are there, capable. They also have the ability to kind of put in hard labor. The system does not allow to go there. That's the whole issue. They are not allowed to penetrate. They are not able to kind of cross the barriers, and they are not allowed to kind of enter that particular arena. As this wonderful, I think, slide that Nidhi showed, essentially they are on the first step. They're just the barriers. An issue is to break the barriers. How do you break the barriers?
Yes, I think that's exactly what we were trying to discuss today. And this is a discussion which will continue. So like we said, we don't really have the answers. And we wanted to hear from all of you and all the participants who've also been very, very active in giving their chats and also question answers. But I don't know, I'm afraid that we really stepped out in respect to time and have held all of you for like more than 2.5 hours. So this is something which is a continuing discussion. And this is just the part one, or just launching this discussion today. And we will have another one probably next week and thereafter. But what we want to also create, like Kirtee said right in the beginning, is this community. So this webinar is also to create a community on this issue so that we can work together and come up with these solutions, that some of them that we discussed in respect to what are the barriers. Now, how do we break those barriers? What steps can we do? Can we do some pilots? Can we co-create them together? So I think that's really the intention that Kirtee and I have on bringing this topic up. Kirtee, any last words from you? Because
yes. Nidhi, what I'm saying is this, that this particular project of ours is not going to say we don't have solutions.
Yes.
We are going to say that we are working towards solutions. They not be perfect solutions. They may not deliver, but we are going to work towards solutions. I think, this has gone on too long. This has been very soft on this. And I think, women are not speaking. And I think there are many areas like that, but this is a very important area that we have picked up. And therefore, what we are going to say is this: in 6 months, 12 months, whatever it takes, that here are the 15 things that we must do. And this is what hopefully will deliver. That is our work. That is what we are doing. That is why we are doing webinars. That is why getting this wonderful people together. That is why we're doing this particular project. We are going to cross that barrier and say there are solutions.
True. That's really hopeful, and I think we've been talking about that kind of approach. Just thanking all my panelists here today. Thank you. And anybody has any last words? I know a lot of you have to actually rush now. Gayathri, Mr. Shroff, Rinki, Bharti, anybody would like to comment and come in, please do. But I think this has been a great learning for all of us and the entire team of Sehreeti and INHAF today to have this discussion. And we would, like I said, have you part of this community of ours, which is working on the women construction workers, and then co-create these solutions. Thank you so much for coming.
I would like to thank you, Nidhi ma'am, heartfully for reaching out to me and giving me such an opportunity to speak in front of everyone and expressing my experience and views on that construction, why not women's ideas. So thank you so much,
Thank you so
ma'am.
much, Rinki. Thank you.
Nidhi, let me take my
Yes.
responsibility as INHAF
Yes, please.
person. And I think let me thank everyone. I think it's my last duty. So thank you, Nidhi, for all the effort, and Sneha for getting this together. This is just the first, and we probably are going to do 3, 4 more. So thank you very much. It's wonderful. You put a great team together, and I think we couldn't have started with a better kind of curtain raiser than we had today. Thank you, Ramendra Kumarji. Thank you, Gayathri ji. Thank you, I think Rinki ji, Jaiprakash Saab, and Bharti ji. I would have taken more time if to thank you. Each one, if there was much time, I think getting very so thank you very much. And thank you, I think, Ankisha, who does enormous amount of work behind the scene and makes all this possible. So thank you, Ankisha, and thank you, everyone. I think who's still around listening. I think we overshot by about an hour or so, but I think this is nothing. Last week we had a session which lasted 4.5 hours. So that's fine. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you all.